Spiky Potato.
And today we're talking racism. This is our Nan. This is our Nan. She's Dominican.
And we're going to ask her questions about racism in her life. So the first question is obviously, have you ever suffered racism?
Oh yes, many times from the time I was very little, when I first started school, up until present day really.
So do you still get it now?
A little bit, but when I was younger it was a lot worse. I remember in my infant school, and so therefore I was only 5 or 6, and I remember all the children dancing around me in the playground and singing songs about me being dirty and wouldn't play with me, and I used to spend every playtime and lunchtime on my own, because people, the children of that day, used to think that if they touched me or played with me, then somehow they get some kind of blackness disease. I don't really understand it, and I still don't.
That's silly.
It is silly. It is silly, but you see, when I was younger, where we moved there when I was about 4, and we were the only black family there. Everywhere was white, and people used to give you horrible looks on the street. The children in the playground, like I said, they would never play with you. And I remember when I was young going to the shops, and shopkeepers actually making sure that they didn't touch your hand when you was giving them the money. They'd be all funny like that, wouldn't want you to touch them.
So when you were younger, like nearly everyone was?
Mostly, yeah.
So did the kids ever say anything to you, like your...
All the time I used to get called really horrible names. I don't know if you've ever seen that toy with the Gollywog toy, which is a black teddy bear, black teddy thing, and they used to call me Gollywog and other names that I'm not going to say here. Not very nice names at all. And even like I told you that's the first incident I remember it in the playground as a really young child. But I even remember when I went into the secondary school, and nobody would. The desks then, they were like twin desks, and nobody would sit with me. I had to sit in a desk on my own. No one would sit with me. No one at all.
Wow. Just because
of the colour of my skin.
That's
rude.
That's really silly.
It's really silly, but it's also really sad, because it made me very lonely. I didn't have any friends. Nobody wanted to be friends. And the thing is, what made it harder as well, because I'm actually mixed race, the white people wouldn't want to be friends with me because I was black. But the black people didn't want to be friends with me either because I was part white. Yeah.
So, but how does that work? So,
But back in the day, anybody who was slightly different, people were... I'm not sure whether to say they were afraid is the right word, but they certainly weren't comfortable, because it wasn't what they were used to. Every thing that they'd probably heard about the black man was not real. It was all fiction. They probably thought they went around eating each other and swinging through the trees. People used to say that to me. Why don't you swing from the lamppost to get to school? Why are you walking the roads? Swing. Oh yeah. People are really cruel.
So in school there was just white and black. There weren't any mixed race, and you were the
I was the only one. But there weren't any black either. At that time, I was the only one.
Oh, so there was just
What about,
white. And
White.
What about
You
your
were just-
siblings? Like, did
did they go to the same school?
Yeah, but the thing is, I went there first, and by the time they came along, they did used to get the racist attitudes, but it was a little bit less because I'd already been there and cleared the way, I suppose, by, I have to unfortunately say, sometimes I had to fight, simply because I was black. And when you're black, people make you believe that you have so you have to prove that you are just as good as a white person. Even though a black person knows that they are just as good as a white person, when you're living in somewhere that is predominantly white, the way they treat you, the way they look at you, the way they talk to you, it makes you feel like you have to work harder to be equal to them.
Were the teachers like it?
Some of them were.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
That's a bit too far.
I know, but back in the day, people weren't so aware of different cultures, different colours, not so accepting. The world wasn't, well, England definitely was not as diverse as it is now. I mean, now you can walk down into any city, any town, any shopping centre, and you will find really black people, different shades of black. You will find different cultures from different countries, all different colours of people, all different cultures, all different races. And yes, people are more accepting, but even still now, in this day and age, there are racists. You only have to, let's take the football games, for example. You know, the fans that are racist to the black players, not just English black players, but all black players. It's an international problem, I think. I really do.
when you got when you got older, were there people of your colour that wanted to be your friends?
As I got older, yeah, because as you get older, you know, if you're a half decent person, you learn the lessons that, you know, you don't judge people by their colour. You judge people. Well, if you're going to judge anyone, then it's going to be on whether they're a good person. Yeah, and if they're a good person or a bad person, not what they look like.
Like, don't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly.
Yeah. In secondary school, you like moved to classes like history's there and
Yeah.
So when you walked into a class, if you knew the answer to something and you put your hand up, like, would they ignore you?
Got the teachers?
Yeah.
I think there have been a couple of instances where they have, but in the main, no. But some did. I know some did. I mean, they would deny it if I was to stand in front of them now. Of course I didn't, but they did.
Did they look at you then turn to the other direction?
Sometimes, yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
It's like, I don't know the right word, but it's like not right for a teacher. Like,
To
No.
do
it's a
it.
teacher. Like, there's all different like children in the school,
Yeah.
and then you have to like separate another pupil just because of their colour.
I think it'd be a lot more difficult for them to do it now because there are so many races in each class, people of all cultures and colours, so I think it'd be a little bit more difficult for them to actually do that. But when I was younger, it was easy for them to do that. It was easy for them to overlook the one black child for a whole class.
So were you
What?
the only one?
Yeah. In my whole school life, I don't think that I can remember one other black person in my school. I was the only one. There were no black teachers, nothing. I was the only black.
So as you got older, was there like, as you go to college and you like get a job, was there like other cultures? Like,
Not at first. When I first went to work, I actually worked at New Scotland Yard. That was my first job. And I remember there were a few, but not loads. It wasn't like now, you know, if you go to a workplace, you're going to find at least 50% of the workforce is going to be a different race or a different culture. My first job, there were some, but very, very few.
Were there like, when you were like getting your first job, were there like, was it like, I know it's not really easy to get a job now, but was it like hard to get a job? Like,
There were more jobs, but again, like it still holds today, if you're black in the day, your interview had to be 100%, whereas a white person could get away with an interview that was like 60%. But like I said to you, as a black person, you had to try harder just to get the same benefits as a white person doing less.
But that's not fair, because if you were like black and then you went into an interview, you like had to get it straightforward.
So
It had to be perfect.
like if there was like a test to get, like had to do a test or something to get into job or something, then you'd have to get like every single, like it had to be all correct.
Exactly. But if there was a white person who got 100% in the test and a black person who got 100% in the test, who do you think would get the job?
The white person. Hearing, wow.
Yeah, seriously.
I would say like take it again, take the test.
It doesn't
again.
matter. No, it doesn't matter, because if you've got 100%, taking the test again is not going to change that actual result, is it? It's the choice of the employer. And back in the day, and I've heard that, you know, I'm not in the workforce now, but I've heard that it's still very much like that. If an employer's got the choice between a white person and a black person, they're exactly the same qualifications, they've passed the test 100%, exactly the same results, the white person would always get picked.
But white people can't. They have to get treated the same. Like if a black person got 100% and you were doing it against another black person, what would they do then? Because you said there was a few.
Right, so I mean, my assumption would be if they were all black, yeah, and all their results were quite good, but then obviously, I don't know, maybe they'll choose you on how you look. I don't know, but if they no. But what I'm saying is, if they was all black, it would just be a case of the most qualified. But but also, if say there was like 90 black people and 10 white, I don't believe that if the 10 white were really low down on the scale in their knowledge, that they would actually be offered a job above a black person more educated, more qualified. But in the main, the preference was always to white on everything. Not just work, not just school. I mean, back in America, back in the day, the blacks weren't even allowed to get on the same buses and all. Yeah.
So there was
We
like
talked
a
about
bus
that
for
in
white.
school, that
Yeah.
or like right, there was like like in classrooms, white people had their own classroom, black people had their own classroom, and the black people wouldn't be taught as much as the white.
Exactly, and I remember when I was young as well, there used to be, and I only just remember this, there used to be signs outside pub windows, no Irish, no blacks.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now that's going too far.
But that's how it was, and they were allowed to get away with it. Yeah, they were allowed to get away with blatant racism.
They could literally put up signs like that saying that black people are not allowed to come in and all the other people. They could put that everywhere, and then they would still get away with it.
Oh yeah.
So what if like police was training and they went out and saw someone doing wrong?
What a black person doing wrong?
Yeah.
I bet they get a consequence more than
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's not very nice.
Being black, especially when I was younger, was a trial every day. But I'm still here. They did not beat me, did they? No.
I'm glad it's not as bad as what it was back then.
Yeah.
Imagine that, not being able to go in certain places just because.
But now you see people are a little bit more understanding. You will always get the hardcore racists. It's pure and simple ignorance. What can you do if they don't want to educate themselves or speak to a black person, we are normal. It's
You're
just
just normal people.
Exactly.
Normal
We have the
people.
same dreams, hopes and dreams as the white person, the yellow person. You know, our heart beats the same way and we all bleed red.
True.
So, you know.
Back when you were a child, you said everyone danced around you, yeah? When they were, like, singing the rude songs about you, were you just, like, standing still, or were you trying to get out? Or...
No, I never used to try to get out because they used to be all round me and there was no way they was going to let me out of their little circle, and I used to stand there and cry. What could I do? And the thing is, the teachers, this is why I'm saying that teachers back in them days were racist as well, because they knew what was going on. And I know now that if the same thing was happening in a school now, the whole of the rest of the school was dancing round one child, the teachers would be out there to stop it, but they didn't.
So,
It used to happen every playground, every playtime, lunchtime.
so everyone was dancing around you, and then if the teachers come out, they would just...
There was always a teacher out because it was the first school, your infant school, so there was always a teacher. There was always a couple of teachers out because we were young, so we had to be kept an eye on so we didn't fall over, hurt ourselves. So there was always a teacher there, and maybe my memory's failing me, I doubt it, but I never remember a teacher coming and breaking them up and telling them to stop.
So if a teacher saw you, then they would just look away. And they'd
Probably.
just
I mean,
carry on.
I couldn't see above the children anyway. Like, I was just crying with my head down, so I wouldn't know if a teacher actually looked and walked away. But all I do know is that a teacher never stopped it.
So no one came to like comfort you.
No.
Or...
And this is only stories from you. Imagine what other people.
Oh,
were.
there are
Yeah.
so many.
Wow.
People, there are people who've had it worse than me. I mean, I've been attacked because of my colour. I remember in a house when I'd had all my children. I'd had your dads and your aunties and everything, and there was a family across the road from us didn't like the fact that I was black, and egged my house and threw all rubbish in my front garden and everything else. Yeah, just because I was black, and that wasn't all that long. Well, I'll say 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe that actually happened.
It happened, and it probably still does. I know it does.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Sad, isn't it?
Racism is a serious thing.
And we should all work together to remove it from our society.
Thank you to our Nan for answering our questions and telling us about it.
About racism. Bye guys.